This is Guludlaw, General of the Armies. This is a money communication as pay for Russia. Also a sad update and intelligence of issues that are problems with solutions being the pay. The topic is the way our equipment keeps getting reprogrammed, such as our computing equipment and our electronic equipment. There's just so much all over, almost everything that uses electricity. My number one piece of influential research here is the humans have seemed to turn into listeners, as in coding speak, like Java coding. The humans are listeners that are making calls, and there's this issue with humans being everywhere at all times nearly, and if they're not showing up when stuff is happening they need to show up for to be these things. What I believe has occurred is these humans have all taken some sort of computer interface to the brain based on assistance technology, like the black market or gray market work done in South America when they started putting eyes in and limbs on that needed computer chips to interface with the brain. And there's a problem with needing a full-size laptop to run them. Well, now we have all these smartphones that are so much more powerful that can be stripped down. These chips might actually be implanted in their brains. And the issue seemed to be these people are physically disabled from genetic disorders, disabling them like thought conditions. They seem to be physically impossible. It seems to be that they are physically disabled from not doing ill will, being corrupt, evil, and violent, and the only thing that can control them is the amount of force it takes to stop that body like it's actually a robot. So now they seem to be taking us all over. They seem to be really good at working the buttons and taking over the interfaces. It's sort of like they're running the interface and not you, except remotely. They also seem to be controlling our displays, so we might not be seeing what's really going on. They put out a lot of false data, although it's confusing, so we don't know if our numbers that are ticking, like our clocks and our things counting, have falsely represented what is going on, or if there are other issues. So there are only so many basic building blocks of programming code possible within the capabilities we have, basically such that the functions that are what run our stuff, that build into higher pieces, and lower pieces are called something usually different, unless it's a function of functions, something different like maybe packages. And there are only so many ways to write these, although there are many, like what types of loops are being used, like a while loop or a for loop, or if loops are used at all or it's hard-coded, or if there is logic, like if-then statements, or if, while, if, only if, then statements. And then we have other logical pieces like ways you just give numbers to things as they fall into the categories of being able to be selected. Select what they do by their numbers they've been assigned. And it seems this problem has figured out how to re-encode at the will of this enemy, or these enemies, this cause of theirs, to remove all of our abilities, basically, such that they're running some sort of permutation and combination of everything I've just mentioned to try to achieve a functionality, which is usually basically taking away our abilities, although there's a lot of dumb talk from the humans that are the listeners making the calls, like make every tick of upload to 100% take off a tick of a battery only at 50%, so it never makes it. Or make that battery pack being charged from with its readout take at least a percent off it, even though that's 5,000 times the amount it is, while you're getting a tick to what you're charging going up 1%. So I think in the basics of architecture and hardware, we always do seem to have this sort of listener making a call functionality. Like the different pieces of hardware are listening and making calls, and it's one of the basic functions there is. Part of the issue does seem to be the way these enemies can reprogram our equipment, sort of like our old time stuff before we even had regulations to control FCC and FAA frequencies, where things had to accept interference. But before that, they could be tuned out of allowable range to cause interference on purpose. So this is a higher level theory where they can show up, and they probably use a nuclear power medium, but they also put gases and particulate matter in the air that might cover a device to achieve it having to be interfered with and then being reprogrammed. There are a lot of telltale signs when using an interface with these problems, like pressing a button doesn't work every time the button is pressed, even if the button clearly shows it has been pressed. Other things appear, like it appears you're at a dummy screen, like you're not even properly using it, and maybe only the hard buttons work, or you'll notice you have to sort of get through layers of screens stacked like in a PowerPoint, where there's just one thing to happen, and it's for the fake one to go away to allow you to use the exact replica of it underneath it. And it seems with certain things, like being able to power a battery while it's charging and be the source of the power for it to charge, will always have a strike squad of humans show to be the listeners to make calls to reprogram the way I'm discussing. So I hope this works and gets the lesson across, so that this can be the pay that pays them back so they get what they deserve, and this ends. We can have our stuff function as it's supposed to and says it will, and these humans can stop being this big problem before we actually just have to remove their species from existence for how evil and vile they are. My last point is, after these strike squads, or just basically the whole species at this point, as I measure them, has lost through all these rounds I'm talking about of trying to control the technology in these ways, they just want to get physically violent and take it away from you, or take your ability to use it. Like they want to chop off your hand, or throw you in a lake, or destroy your devices, or snatch them up when you don't have them, or make the motors flip and flop it like a fish to jump out of your hand in a way that kills it. So, I don't know, prepare to be bit and chewed, Russia. So they're endlessly doing this now. It seems to be every member of the species. It is every member of the species I've seen for maybe 6 months. I think I have 3 months for sure making these measures. Every human is this problem now.